Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our today's webinar. This is the fourth in our series, The Future of Online Participation in Smart Cities. My name is José Carlos Vaz. I'm the chair of the Brazil chair at the University of Münster in Germany, and I am also professor at the University of São Paulo in Brazil. We are delighted to have you here for this discussion. This is a discussion presented by the Brazil Chair and the Brazil Center at the University of Münster. And this series brings together experts from academia, from civil society, and from government. And the main idea is to explore the key issues that shapes the future of online participation in the context of cities and smart cities. This webinar is part of our broader research project, that is the SCOPE research project. This means the state capacity in smart cities for online participation. We focus the role of state capacity in enabling meaningful online participation in smart cities. And you can visit our website and you can find materials from our research. We will put the URL there. We are supported by the federal agents from Brazilian government, CAPES, and for our institutional partners, including the International Digital Dialogues of the German Federal Ministry for Digital and Transport, and the Goethe Institute in São Paulo. Many thanks to everyone who made this webinar possible, especially our colleagues from the Brazil Center and to Professor Norbert Kerstin, that is our host in the Institute of Political Science at the University of Münster. Now we are going to start. Fernanda Campagnucci will moderate this session. She is the postdoctoral researcher in this project, my colleague in the coordination of the webinar and the SCOPE project. She has an extensive experience as a practitioner in government and civil society and has led many projects in the field of technology and data. Fernanda, it's up to you. Go ahead, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Vas, for that kind introduction and a warm welcome to everyone who is joining us today. So before we dive into today's session and meet our panelists, let me take a moment to set the stage and provide some context for the topic we will be exploring today. So as Professor Vaz mentioned, this webinar series has been examining various aspects of online participation in the context of smart cities. One of the most frequent discussed features of smart cities is data collection. So this often involves technologies like cameras, noise and light sensors, weather monitoring tools, GPS, and other geolocation systems. These are tools that provide critical urban data to help city managers to make more informed decisions. So why have we chosen to focus on this phrase, citizens as sensors, this concept, this expression? So this highlights the idea that everyday people using familiar technologies like smartphones, cameras, and wearable devices, they can actively participate in gathering, sharing, contributing with data. So essentially, citizens become these human sensors offering real-time insights and other information about their surroundings, their environment. So, but this concept also raises as a question: how collaborative and open are really these initiatives? How inclusive they are when it comes to citizen participation? So to kick off this conversation, I'd like to introduce a framework we've been developing here at our research project. This framework serves as a kind of compass guiding us to understand the online participation in smart cities. It's just to set the stage, so I'm going to share my screen. Okay. So you see here 2 axes, right? And in these 2 axes, we are going to show a little bit of the government perception on citizen online participation. So how governments see citizens in these initiatives. So the vertical axis is how much they are being involved in policy decision making. So the more up you go, the more involved in policy making, and the lower part of the compass is less involved in policy making, right? And in the horizontal axis, we have more involvement in tech governance. So how much do people participate in the level of infrastructure of technology? And in the left side, of course, not involved or less involved in tech governance and in this kind of infrastructure. So if you go to the first quadrant, you have what we are calling here citizens as opinionated users. So citizens are seen as users of platforms, of some kind of online participation initiative. They are part of the decision-making process, sometimes more deliberative, sometimes less, but they are being called to participate in the decision-making. But they are not involved in the tech itself. They don't have a say on how this platform works or how it's supposed to, or how transparent is this platform. So we have another quadrant. If you look at the other side of this question, the people are really involved in tech governance. They are being called to action. They are being called to collaborate, to co-create technological solutions. So they are seen as collaborators in this infrastructure. And here we also can see our discussion that we're having today with citizens collaborating in the collection of data, but they are really, they have a say on how this infrastructure of data should work. And in the other side, this idea of citizens as sensors is not always, but is sometimes linked to the idea that people are sensors. They are collecting data, but they don't really have a say in the policy making. They just are seen as vectors of data. So of course we are here to discuss different perspectives of this idea, but sometimes people are seen just as data providers, and they are not being called to really to inform policy making or to participate in shaping policy, and they are not called to collaborate in the infrastructure. So today we're going to see some experiences where people really have a say or can participate in how technology works. So another way of navigating in this compass. And last but not least, we have the quadrant where people can really participate in policy making and where people are also involved in technology. So this would be more seeing citizens as democratic architects. They are participating in democracy, they are participating in policy making, but they are also collaborating in the level of infrastructure of data collection. So I hope we have a mix of these perspectives today, and I hope this help us to navigate the discussion. This was just to kick off the debate. And now that we had this perspective, a quick reminder for those that are following us live, you can you can ask questions in the chat. So I encourage you to submit your questions, and we will answer as many as we can during the session. And without further ado, let me just give the floor to our panelists. So first we'll have Thomas Bartoszek. He's a postdoctoral researcher at the Institute of Geoinformatics at the University of Munster. And he's also the head of the SenseBox project. We'll hear about this project today. and he conducts research in the fields of learning with geotechnologies, human-computer interactions, and citizen science. I'm always also excited to hear this approach of citizen science here. So Thomas, thank you for being here. The floor is yours, please.
Thanks a lot, Fernanda. I'm going to share my screen. Thank you for the kind introduction. Yes, so as mentioned, I lead since a few years, I lead the SenseBox project, and this is where I'm going to start with. So maybe some of you haven't ever heard of the SenseBox. I'm going to tell a few words about its history, where it came from, and what we do here, basically, and then give a brief example of a current project where the SenseBox is involved, where the context of very intense participation of citizens following the citizen science approach is inside, and where we really hope we are involving authorities in here as well. So we want to see, we hope to see success here in really the full process of the participation and use of data by authorities here, basically. So for those of you who have never heard of the SenseBox, it's a tool that we have developed at the University of Münster a few years back, more than 10 years ago. And its background basically in educational context. So we were thinking about solutions, how to involve young people in the use of technologies like sensor technologies, Internet of Things technologies, and developed a toolkit that has been able to use in schools and educational institutions. But on the way, like more or less 10 years ago in Germany, the citizen science movement basically grew stronger and stronger and larger. And we have seen big potential of such toolkits to involve also citizens, not only maybe high school students, but everybody in the process of data collection of environmental monitoring. So we developed such kind of a toolkit and a tool that is very flexible in use in building an environmental measurement station that is linked linked to the internet in different ways, and can be used in education, but also by citizen scientists at home. Also, the tools and the technologies we have developed, it's basically a hardware. It's a whole ecosystem based on a hardware and two platforms. It's being used in scientific context as well, and meanwhile also in professional smart city tools, basically. So just to give a brief idea of the technology, I'll be pretty fast on that. There are plenty of sensors of every kind of environmental phenomena that can be measured in this system, starting with weather things, but light and other things like air pollution. We have plenty of ways to transmit data to the internet, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and LoRa and other things. And as mentioned, it's an ecosystem. So we have two platforms that are linked to this hardware. One is a visual programming tool, this Blockly interface. So everybody, even lay people without any experience, can really learn to build these devices and to program it. And the other part, and this is about the online participation we are focusing on today, is the Open SenseMap, which is a platform where the data can be stored. It's an open platform, as the name already says. Open in terms of any kind of measurement device can be registered that is able to talk to the internet, and the data submitted is open data. So following a license that can be used by everybody for any purpose, even commercial purposes. Yeah, so this is maybe the whole ecosystem we have developed here, and to be pretty sustainable on such kind of a project that has the citizen science context so deep in its concept. Yeah. We doing this kind of projects as a university is kind of tough, especially when you have such a platform like the Open SenseMap with you, where data have to be stored for years, maybe, where it has to be kept alive to be accessible by a lot of people, by everybody, maybe. So we thought of, during the projects, we thought of a sustainable way to keep these things alive. And we spinned off basically two companies even out of this project here. One that is taking care of the hardware, which is Redo, and the other company, Open Sense, that is taking care of this platform here. So just to make also a potential way how to deal with this kind of project that maybe in the scientific context have always somewhat phase of a few years where funding is there, and then these projects maybe disappear. We were pretty successful in creating entities where these projects still are alive, and now together with the university, with other universities, are being used in plenty of research projects. And one of the research projects, this is where I'm going to lead to now, is Atrai Bikes. And there's a strong relation also to Brazil. That's why I really love to spread a few words about it here in this webinar. It's a project funded by the German Ministry of Education and Research, but also by FAPESP, the organization from the state of Sao Paulo. And we have two companies, really one of the spin-offs, Sensebox spin-offs, and 52 North from Münster in here, but also a Brazilian company from Sao Paulo, Instituto Corial, who is involved here. And we, in this project, we developed the Sensebox, as you've heard of it, as a toolkit to build devices, measurement devices. We focus on building it as a mobile device for bikes. Yeah, so we try to, we create the technology and involve citizens to collect data on bikes, and the data is on basically on environmental things, but also on bike safety. Motivation, as mentioned, is cycling is very dangerous, for too dangerous for many people. That's why they don't go on bikes. And it's not only the case in Sao Paulo, if you might imagine, it's always also the case in Germany. It's really this is very recent data. 42% of people do not go on bikes just because it's too dangerous for them. Yeah, even on short tracks in cities. So we try to have a technology, a device that collects data and involves citizens, yeah, and for understanding the condition the cyclists face, and also to really improve policy measures, yeah, to support infrastructure projects, yeah, to make cycling more safe. So we developed the hardware. This was the first thing. The second one is, and we already performed workshops with citizens in Münster and in Sao Paulo. And we are right now creating a platform to allow data analysis for people working in the authorities, working on bike data, but also for the citizens themselves, because it's really in our context in the Sensebox world, we really want to involve the citizens in all phases of such a project, in the context where what's to measure basically in the building of the device, in the data collection, but also after that, yeah, in the data analysis, maybe up to the publication, where we don't have to go towards a scientific publication, but even the data publication is very relevant, of course. Yeah. Yeah, so the hardware you have seen in the first slides now is involved in a case which is linked to bikes, basically in different positions. And citizens, yeah, as you hear here, for example, and citizens go on the rides, on their daily rides maybe, or on their rides to work, to school, on their leisure rides, and collect data. And collect the data not only about environment, but as I mentioned, on bike safety. And I want to make one distinct example about the safety aspects here. The data is transferred from the device to a smartphone and from there to the internet, basically. So citizens can also have access to the data all the time, even live on their bike. Yeah. So one sensor we involved here is a time of flight sensor. It's not the camera you see on the left side in the image, but a special sensor that it's a depth image sensor, basically. So we involved an AI that is recognizing overtaking maneuvers, too close overtaking maneuvers by cars. So this sensor looks to the left of the bike and collects this data all the time. And there's a neural network that is recognizing basically a car and recognizing even if it's a bike, yeah, different things. And it has a really good way to recognize this very close maneuvers here and saves the data on distinct points. And this is very important data to city authorities, to the city planners, because they usually don't know where it's too dangerous. And they know maybe from real accidents, but they don't know from the near to accidents. And this is really important data. So this data lands on the app, and in the app, the citizens really can do a lot of things. For example, also add some privacy zones where they don't want data to be collected, maybe near to their home, to their work, and things like that. And then the data is going to this platform, to the Open Sensor, where it's available to everybody. That's why the privacy zones are important. And out of this raw data, one can create this kind of visualizations, for example. This is what we aim for in our data analysis platform as well. This is a heat map of too close overtaking maneuvers in the city of Hamburg. We did a test workshop 2 months ago. Yeah. So after the workshop, citizens went went on their bikes and went for a few hours riding around. And this was data they brought from just a bike ride of a few hours. Right now, 20 cyclists are cycling in Münster for 3 months and in Sao Paulo as well to collect much more data, of course. Yeah, the workshops are key to our work. So we really want the citizens to build the device. We just don't hand them any device. They build a device. This strengthens an identification with such a technology. This is of course a part of capacity building to really hands-on activity where they build something, where they maybe even if they want to, they can do the programming. And they then we ensure with this activity that they really will take care of it and not forget it on the bike or whatever, and really do the data collection later on. So this is the group in Sao Paulo, which we met in August, and in October we had a second workshop in Münster. Yeah, so this is it basically. I'm closing here with this project image and the final project site here as one example of a very strong participation and in a very let's say recent topic involving bike data and involving cycling infrastructure and potential for policymakers here. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Thomas. Thanks a lot for sharing these experiences and very concrete examples of this mix of citizen science and citizen sensors as collaborators, as we've seen in SenseBox. And we'll have the opportunity to talk more about this experience later. But first, I would like to hear from Gisele Craveiro, Professor Gisele Craveiro. Is professor at the University of São Paulo. She's lecturing undergraduate courses and she's part also of the postgraduate program on social change and political participation. And Gisele is the co-founder and coordinator of the Participation and Collaborative Development Research Group at the University of São Paulo, known as Collab USP. And she's member of the Latin American Open Data Initiative. I've known Gisele for a long time, and it's a huge pleasure to have you here, Gisele.
Thank you so much, Fernanda, for this kind of introduction. And it's a pleasure to be here among many friends. And I have to say that I'm very happy also to mention that Fernanda and I were supporting Open Knowledge Brazil, a wonderful organization that fights for access to knowledge. And very glad to be here with José Carlos Vaz, Peter, Thomas, and all of you that are following us online. And many thanks for this series of webinars. And I also like a lot, Fernanda, your introduction to the topic with the quadrants. I have questions for our webinar, but first I will show some works that we are developing in University of São Paulo. I would say that will be in a people-centered perspective, related to some data that are very closed, obscure one, that are the public budget data. So how we can translate this kind of data, the city budget, to the demands of the population. So in this perspective, I would like to share with you today two cases, two projects. Let me share my second, please. So I think it's okay. I'd like to talk about two projects. One, it's called Cuidando do Meu Bairro. In English, it would be Caring for My Neighborhood. And project it collects in a daily basis public budget data of São Paulo City and puts on a map in a real-time base in order to provide this data for any people, anyone interested to civic monitoring public budget data. But this data, it isn't perfect. It's far from being perfect because it only puts very aggregated values and not specific ones that help the citizenship follow each cent that is applied on their territory. So this tool also provides freedom of information request tool in order to do anonymous, kind of anonymous requests for better information. So if you have a amount that are allocated to build schools, and this is not completely clear where this school will be built in the city level, so the citizen can ask, and this tool will pack this request, sent to the public involved, the public gesture to public managers to get their reply, and then all this information will be put in our platform. So with this combination, so this tool is being used for about more than 10 years in São Paulo city. And the other platform is called Monitorando a Cidade, or in English, Promise Tracker. It's a toolkit that gathers a methodology to do this collaborative data collection on any issues, because we also have a tech platform to design the collection tool in any topic. So we developed this to give a tool to people that don't have technical expertise implementing applications, implementing tools to do this collection tool, and also a mobile app to open this collection tool and to give this way in order to collect the data on the territory. So in the case of Caring for My Neighborhood, we have some prints in order to show you how the platform works. So I have this print that you can see the city budget on this point, and the colors of the pins change in a daily basis in order to the citizenship have this information that normally disclosed in Excel tables and very complicated interfaces in a more simple way. And also you can see the tool to make requests and to receive the replies in order to complement and make a whole understanding of the public spending. In the other platform, Monitorando a Cidade, Promise Tracker, we have some pictures that are showing the use of this platform, to the use of these tools in order to monitor many public issues, and also the students near this lake, they are doing citizen science in order to get some data about bioindicators. So these two platforms combined can give some users in order to get more information, to disclose it in a simple language, in a citizen language, and also to help them to get their own data. So, as I said in the beginning, we have some support from civil society organizations, some also private companies, and some awards and recognitions from more than a decade. And also we are very happy to share with you that these tools, platforms, and methodology, they will be used by students, children, youth, and also many elderly people. So we are trying to understand the aspects related to each demand of information, to each group demand of information. So I would love to share with you in the part of the questions and answers of this webinar. It's their governance, data governance model, and I think we can make some correspondence between our models and Fernanda's work that she previously showed us. And just to show some points about our challenges for both projects, we have the problems that faces the scalability issue, the scalability challenge, and the sustainability issue as well. And how we can grow, how can we scale this in a context that we don't have data standardization from the public management, and also how we can sustain this multi-stakeholder governance involving academics, civil society organizations, and public bodies and agencies. So we have a story to tell to you, a 10 years, a decade of a story, but now we are thinking about what will be the future of these initiatives, as they show us that they are viable, they are far from being just a pilot project, but is also very challenging to scale and to sustain them in the near future. So many thanks for your attention. I'm available for questions, and I send you all my data and the links to the projects mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gisele, for that presentation and all the projects, the interesting projects that we've been conducting in all those years. And I hope we can talk more about these challenges, these scalability challenges and sustainability, as they are also challenges of all projects in this field. So thank you for that. And now I would like to invite Peter Zeiler to share his perspective Peter is the head of International Smart Cities Network with GIZ, supporting German Federal Ministry of Housing, Urban Development and Building, promoting the integration of digital solutions into citizen-centered urban development processes. And Peter also holds an MBA in International Real Estate Management. So Peter, thank you so much for being here. The floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today and also shed some light on the understanding of IoT in Germany. And you already mentioned the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development and Building that is quite active in this field, in the field of smart cities, first of all within Germany, but also abroad. So within Germany, the ministry has the program called Model Project Smart City, which currently 73 cities are supported and funded to become smart city, but also to make their work results publicly available, because 73 cities are supported, but in Germany there is like a slightly higher number of 11,000. And they also should participate in whatever these smart cities develop. Having said this about the German case, the project which I'm heading, the International Smart Cities Network, is more or less focusing on global scale and working together with the countries of India, Brazil, Peru, and Mexico predominantly. And we look what, especially in these countries, but also globally, what are the latest solutions of smart cities that can be brought to German municipalities, but also vice versa, the results by these model projects, smart cities, we try to distribute and disseminate globally. And of course, within talking about the Internet of Things, the model project Smart Cities, they emphasize on 3 critical approaches. I will be presenting the following. So there might be some doublings of what has been said already, but it does make sense in the case of in the German case to mention them again. And also within these 3 approaches, we'll introduce briefly some of the projects that have had a focus on this one. But of course, as time is running short, please bear with me, and we will present a link afterwards where you can actually access all the information that is presented by me in its short course of these 10 minutes. So first of all, the participatory data collection. So the ministry is, of course, focusing on enabling the citizens as IoT contributors to empower them to actively contribute data. So you all know those devices, smartphones, wearables, or home sensors, and they, of course, do serve as tools through which the residents can collect and share the information. But this is was quite a steep learning. This citizen-generated data complements the municipal system, so it offers richer, localized insights into the urban dynamics. In the case of the MPSC, the city of Ulm was one of the front runners who did some projects, and in this case, and it encouraged its citizens to measure air quality using some portable IoT sensors, somewhat similar to what Thomas introduced just before. And so the data is aggregated with the municipal systems to, of course, you might think about it, it's to monitor and improve the environmental conditions. So, of course, these initiatives, and that's what the ministry was aiming at, to democratize data collection, but also fostering transparency, while still empowering the citizens to address issues in their communities, to actually reintroduce them to active participation in urban development. So, of course, talking about this participatory approach builds trust in smart city ecosystems, but by also showing citizens their direct impact of their contributions, and whether it's cleaner air, optimized waste management, and so on. And of course, we all know, and this is also nothing new, but for me as an urban planner, it's always cannot say it often enough that the citizens, as the local experts, can of course contribute greater amounts than planners can do from some remote desk in their offices. And now with the Internet of Things, of course, this is even a much greater leverage we can bring into our sustainable urban development. Having said this about the first pillar, the second one is talking about co-creation. So designing IoT solutions with citizens. And here's, of course, the co-creation where actually the city reaches out to its citizens to actively engage them and develop the design of some IoT-enabled solutions. So here, the city of Hamburg, which is also quite active in the MPSC context, but also beyond that, they introduced their city science lab. And of course, it integrates citizens into the urban planning as well via some simulation platforms. So they could actively contribute data, not only how they commute to work, but also in the aftermath then to how to design mobility systems. And this, of course, ensures that we do not create an IoT ecosystem that is a top-down approach only, but it also reflects the actual lived realities of our urban citizens. So basically top-down combined with a bottom-up approach. And then, of course, we can quite talk about a theory for hours, but how to actually look into some feedback loops and how can actually real-time citizen engagement support the city. This is also something we should focus on. And there is, of course, as I said, those real-time feedback loop between the citizens and the municipal authorities. It is a shift from basically this one-directional data collection to some continuous and responsive dialogue. So here citizens don't only have to provide data, but also receive insights and what in turn could be improved. They're also one of the 73 cities I would like to introduce here is the city of Gelsenkirchen. They, of course, those systems are known already when it's about the real-time energy monitoring. So here, residents were enabled through tools to track their household energy consumption. And then, of course, with external support by the energy consultancies of the municipalities, they could get not only some visualizations, but also some recommendations on their energy saving. So, of course, this makes this entire IoT ecosystem or universe, so to say, more meaningful and fostering for ongoing engagement by the citizens. And this also highlights the potential of the IoT to actually enable sustainability by how to do it, combining individual actions with the systematic improvements on a municipal level. So this feedback-oriented approach, and coming back to the ministry again, it aligns with the ministry's commitment to not only digital sovereignty, but also ensuring citizens feel empowered but not surveilled in IoT ecosystems. I already gave a little glimpse on some feedback, but also some broader reflections from the MPSC program. It's first of all, inclusivity. So IoT technologies do have to address diverse urban challenges by involving a wide spectrum of citizens. Second is scalability. Giselle also mentioned scaling, which is quite important, also focused by the ministry here. So pilot projects like the ones I mentioned can, of course, be blueprints for other cities within the MPSC context, but also, and this is where the International Smart Cities Network comes into action now, is that we want to spread those learnings globally within the network of not only GIZ, but also whoever is interested. So later on, we'll post a link where you can actually reach out to us and see what works we're doing, basically what information we have spread so far. And then last but not least, the digital sovereignty is, of course, only secure and transparent and citizen-controlled data systems can reinforce trust. So this might sound, logical, but of course we should always remember this when we design new ecosystems from the beginning. So let me let me conclude. My intervention is, of course, the concept of citizens, and Fernanda, you also mentioned this. It transforms citizens as sensors, it transforms urban environments into some dynamic ecosystems where every individual can actually play an active role. And also the IoT in the specific case of smart cities, it's not just a network of devices, but also a partnership between technology and people. Because what is it all about? This is another focus by the ministry. It is do not introduce technology and tools for the sake of their introduction, but also with a grander focus on what actually can they do good to the people, and so to keep in mind the people-centeredness. Having said this, Katie, I would like to ask you to post the link of the International Smart Cities Network in case you haven't done it already. Here you can see short interventions from our side, what we try to spread the news across our platform, latest developments in short periods of time, so as many people as possible can join us without having to spend a whole day on some conferences, which I do not say are not important, but maybe might be too time consuming. So we try to keep it short. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter. It was very nice to get to know more of the experiences, especially within German cities, as we are making this dialogue. We're trying to bridge this conversation between Europe and Latin America, but especially Brazil and Germany. So it was very interesting to hear more about them. And well, now I'd like to invite the other two panelists to a broader discussion. And again, I encourage all the people that are watching us now that can have the opportunity to ask directly questions to the panelists. But I will kick off with a general question. You mentioned different perspectives, different initiatives, and in different occasions you have been in touch, you have been in contact with authorities and with city managers. And I would like to know how has this experience been? Like, how which barriers did you encounter? Which barriers did you find while being in touch with municipalities? We are interested in knowing more about state capacities. This is one of our lens, of our theoretical lens in this project. So we can talk about different kinds of barriers and capacities, like human development or human resources and technical capacities, but also political and relational capacities. So in your experience, in your projects, how this relationship with government has been? And we can start from the same order with Thomas, please.
Yes, yeah, thanks, Fernanda. This is really an interesting topic. And as mentioned in the beginning, I have a few hats I can change, from the scientific part to the business part as well. So maybe I'm going to start with the business part here, because it's maybe interesting for the audience here. With the spin-off companies, we do a lot of projects together with authorities. Or maybe to be clearer, we want to do projects with authorities, and we also do a few. But this is a major problem, maybe about the time frames in that the formal and bureaucratic part in city authorities takes. So we have a great base, as Peter mentioned, the MPSC project in Germany, at least. I'm speaking about Germany. I don't have the full experience in Brazil. So we have this great base of the MPSC projects in Germany by more than 70 cities. So at least the political part should be clear. The cities, not all, I know, but in most of the cities, decisions have been made to do these projects, and the way is there. But still, it's really a hustle and really a pain to start the projects as a company with the cities, because usually the cities do not do the projects on their own. They hire companies to do this and that project, and this process takes really a long time and is a really complex project where now I miss the English word. In German you say Vergaberecht, of course, how the project money can be spent following the rules, the correct rules. Things take really a long time. So in a few things we did already, sometimes it's more than a year from the first discussion with a city person responsible for such a project and interested in one of the technologies or approaches we do with citizens or whatever, up to signing a contract and doing the project. It takes 1 year of preparation where on our side, at least, nothing is happening. So things are very slow in cities, usually, not always. We have some special examples, but usually it's kind of slow process. And even if it's wished by the ministry that within this smart city project things are scalable and reproducible, so if one city pays for an open source project to be produced here, it's not that easy and just like that it's being redone again in another city. Still, that takes a long time that this is possible.
Thanks, Thomas. And our translator devices are saying that Vergaberecht is public procurement legislation. Is that so?
Thanks a lot. Yeah, sounds really well fitted.
Okay, yeah, this is surely a topic when we were talking about that, because of innovation in public procurement is also something that requires state capacities to promote, right? Not to do things they are usually done, but how to innovate and how to make process more agile. Certainly requires a range of capacities, and it's also very frequent in both our experiences in Brazil and Germany. So Giselle would like to jump in the conversation.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the question. I think that in our case, that we're trying to explore budget data, public budget data, things are a little bit more complicated because we are trying to make it tangible. So public data is kind of a very heavy cloud for most of people to understand, even public managers. And we are trying to translate it to vulnerable people, to children, and so on. And making this link to tangible infrastructure, city infrastructure. But during this process, we realize that smart city, making this a tangible subject, help us to understand, help us to have this entrance in civil society organizations and public bodies and so on. So this is very strategic to follow this path. But suddenly everybody will realize that it's a very tough topic, and we have to face a cultural change. So to have better data about public data, about city infrastructure, and also standardized data will lead us a very deep cultural change inside the state, inside the relation between government and society as well. So as we are doing a kind of long-term project, as we have more than 10 years online, we decided to don't work with government in this project as partners, as political supporters, partners, because we faced a lot of instabilities during these projects, many changes inside the government, and we are trying to build our own capacities and civil society capacities to make the project stable all along this decade, because when we have a broken link, a broken conversation, a broken project, it affects the legitimacy of the channel, the legitimacy of the model of participation, and I think that all the work we have done previously. So in one point, we decided to run this independently from the government, providing a channel to interact with the government, but outside the government. Maybe it's a little bit confusing, but it was a strategic issue to drive sustainability, political sustainability, all over many mandates of the city mayors and other changes during this cultural change to have more and better public budget data.
Yeah, so the idea here is almost as the society is providing the infrastructure, the technical infrastructure, so that government can have data and can have maybe a channel with the public. And how was the reception of managers to this idea? Maybe I don't want to incorporate the platform as my infrastructure, but I can use the data and I can analyze it, and it can help me to inform my policy making process.
Yes, we receive a lot of requests to scale the tool, to scale the methodology, but the fact is we don't have this capacity to do it. So that's why we are just in São Paulo city environment. So this is a very important issues to talk about, to face.
This is interesting. We can come back later, but as Giselle mentioned, we work together in some initiatives. And when I was in the other side of the initiative inside government, and we collaborated in some initiatives, and it seems to me that the university here is an important axis of stability, because governments change, and the university has a more stable way of sustaining initiatives, but then you have the challenge of sustaining the initiative with public resources, and so this is also a question. So we can come back to that later, but it's interesting to highlight this aspect of the university being an actor that can provide also this data, this infrastructure, but also has a challenge to sustain in the long term. Thanks, Giselle. And Peter, the mic is yours. How do you see this relationship with government in the initiatives you followed?
Yeah, thank you. What we see in whichever combination we talk with municipalities. And this is also one of, coming back to the MPSC program, it's also one thing, not only to focus on cities of the same size, but looking at different cities, because different municipalities do have different issues, being it they don't have the human capacity to actually look into this. What's always there is ideas. This is a great thing, but on the other hand is how can you actually implement those ideas? And then, of course, talking with municipalities is to do away with the fear of a smart city. I have to, as a small city, I have to invest unlimited funds of money in order to get like my command and control center, but this is not the case. I mean, small villages don't need this kind of equipment what larger cities need in order to collect the data. Sometimes it is less is more, and it can be done actually without large data platforms or servers to be run by a small municipality. So I'm also glad Thomas mentioned the MPSC from his side, and the city of Münster actually also participates. I just Googled to confirm my initial thought. Yeah, coming back to your question, it is of course different cities of different sizes do actually have the trouble of performing as maybe bigger cities would, as they have larger not only capacities in terms of staff, but also in terms of financials and budgets. And then, of course, it's great to see what Giselle is doing with the university. And I will get back to you on that one, actually.
Oh, no, I'm unmuted. So thank you, Peter. And I'm just having a look at the YouTube pages. Some people here are doing some comments. I'd like to bring the question from Italo, who is also our colleague in the project. And Italo is asking specifically, what are the challenges to scaling solutions to with citizen participation? So we have already touched some of the issues. I would like to bring it again if you can have more specific examples. I think the challenge of scaling is not only resources, is maybe also a question of infrastructure, but also how do you sustain, do you maintain a bigger initiative and that generate more data? So different kinds of questions for scalability. And I will also bring the question of Jessica. Jessica is saying, thank you for the great presentations. And she's saying that she's not from the field, she's a biochemist. So she's wondering, how do you motivate people to be involved in data collection? It's interesting because Thomas mentioned that people help build the devices, the hardware of the initiative as a way to involve them. Are there any other strategies, or how can we really involve people in this process? How do we make sense of this process for them? And if she's just asking if how difficult it is, and if you could maybe choose or reply both questions, it will be great. So again, anyone that wants to go first?
Maybe I'm going to stick to the order. So because I just yeah, I'm going to start maybe with the second question, because it fits well to the things I said before, motivating citizen scientists. The approach we follow, I mentioned already, but what I know from science about citizen science, and there is plenty of work on that already there. People participating usually the best motivation comes from somehow from inside. It's an intrinsic motivation, and we have these people in the society. So usually people want to change something in the city. They're activists on different topics. They're interested in doing participating in these projects on different topics. And there are, of course, also citizen science projects from the biodiversity domain. There are projects from the medical domains, but also even a lot of smart city projects involving citizens. Some new approaches or newer approaches. The approach itself is not new, but not much, as far as I know, not much used in the city, in the smart city domain, is gamification. What we are trying right now is one element of gamification is involving some kind of badges for the participants, some kind of digital certificates on the gained competencies. So while participating, citizens get the competencies. In our case, for example, really to work with hardware, to do the programming, maybe to collect data, and even for collecting a lot of data continuously, you have to keep the device alive. You have to support it with energy. You have to put some work into it, of course, and for that you get some. In our case, we are right now trying and had one paper on that, trying out digital badges as certificates that participants can use in for example. If there are competencies that are relevant for a job application in the future, they can use this badges, this digital certificates, even to do that. So there is some additional motivation maybe to keep on to participate, and we are trying out that and doing some research on that currently. But there might be plenty of other things. At least in our case, we never had even participation with the city authorities organizing these kind of workshops for different cities. And we never had difficulties to get the 20, 30 participants in such projects. This was not a big problem, never. And about the scalability, the first question maybe relates to the first one. My answer in the last round also. There are some challenges in scalability. There are some challenges in reproducibility of such kind of projects. They are more on the formal side as well, but as well. On technical sides, and maybe now the focus on the technical side. I think the major goal for the future of scalability in this work and reproducibility of such projects is open source. Following an open source approach also in the technology. It might be open source software, but also open source hardware, as in our case. And a well-documented code base for software products, for example, that cities either the technological people in cities, or if cities involve companies to set up such projects, that they easily can follow up and base their projects on an existing code base. I think this is the major point about scalability. So thanks for that.
Who wants to jump in?
Thanks for the questions. They are really hard to reply. I think in our case, as we are basically related to democratic innovation, our urban democratic innovation is a little bit more difficult to make this kind of channel to a conversation. So we have to build this in a legitimate way, work with both sides, from the demand side and from the government side, in order to give the feedback that people are waiting. So when people engage to collect data, they are not doing this as the end. They are doing this as they see that this somehow will help them in their regular lives. So I'm collecting this data. My children is collecting data about the school meal, because they want to have this meal often, in a daily basis. I am collecting this data about my streets, about traffic, about many other city issues, because I want better public services. So sometimes it's very hard to deliver it in a collaborative way, in a process that in many cases it only happens in a couple of weeks, or in a month, or maybe in 6 months. How can you give the guarantees to that civil society related in the process, in order they will have these lives in a better condition? The public services they are complaining about the quality will be better after this process. So we basically have had some process, very successful process about school launches, about school infrastructure, and many frustrations in many other projects, about many city issues, because all the demands are too high. Normally they are the expectations are very high, and the state capacity is too low. And make this conversation, try to link the both points, is a very difficult and very tough process in order to build this conversation, in order to build this channel. So not so optimistic, so pink vision of this many years of experience, but a very realistic one.
Peter, do you want to?
Yeah, actually, I'm glad Thomas mentioned gamification for the second question. And it's not always there needs to be a sophisticated strategy of improving data collection through gamification. We had it, some colleagues had it. They approached some companies, and in terms of team building, they actually started to collect data in their area. So this can also be some simple methods with companies to actually, and people to participate and provide data. The first question on scaling, of course, I can already also refer to my colleagues here have already answered, but it is, as long as there is this critical mass of citizens that have certain intrinsic motivation, then I'm not afraid of working in this field. But also, of course, what is needed beyond the motivation is they need to know this safe space by the government, that actually whatever they come up with ideas to develop, nothing is forbidden at the moment, but within it's going to be refined and concretized within the development of some data collection strategy, so to say. So on the one hand, motivation; on the other hand, this assurance by the government that it is all is a transparent process.
Great. Yeah, always the question of the purpose is something important here. And of course, when you can connect with established social movements or people that already have their agendas to engage in the situation, as the bike movement, I imagine the cycle activists we have in São Paulo City, for instance, may be engaged in the project. I know they would be. So it's interesting how governments can connect with social movement And thinking about that, I'm going to bring a very important question that Ayrton Andrés Chavez made in the chat. He asked, how can we assure that collected data will be used in benefit of the population, mainly minorities, and not against them, depending on the political forces in power? Because, of course, once you have the infrastructure established, we've heard of things like that. Like we had a smart city camera infrastructure built, and then you have women being monitored for the dress codes that they're in violation too. Like these sort of distortions of the infrastructure, but also it brings us this reflection on the governance. So Thomas showed also this idea of a privacy area. So people there have control on which data they want to share, which data they cannot, depending on the on how they perceive the sensibility of the case. So if you can also comment on that, how do you think this, how to assure that the data we are generating are really used in benefit of the people, not against them? And I will also say for this, maybe this last round, or maybe we have time for one more. José Carlos, Professor José Carlos Vaz and Professor Kerstin, they are in the room. So if you also want to jump in to make some comments, please feel free. So let's do this first round to comment on Ayrton questions, and then Professor Vaz and Kerstin, if you want, just jump in.
Yes, after them, I can talk.
Okay, so maybe I'm gonna start again here. So this is a really great question and a tough one, I have to say. I have to admit it's really a tough question and an important issue that is tough to handle, I believe. So in some, I would say in some cases it's really it would be great if it would be possible to somehow prevent this situation, but in some situations it won't be, especially if we take into account, again, the very positive part of open source and open data that is created and used and created by the citizens in such participative projects. Then the data is open. And of course, depending on the license, the openness of the data can be restricted in some way. It can be only for non-commercial purposes, but still it's somehow accessible. And then preventing that it's being misused for different purposes is very difficult. And I would say also on a juristical way, or from this perspective of law, it's kind of a difficult way to prevent that. Just to make a very concrete example of not a citizen science project, but a crowdsourcing project that is pretty well known and there already for more than 20 years. It's the OpenStreetMap. It's the alternative to Google Maps, I would say, and the open and free map of the world. And it's not only a map, it's much more than a map. The map is just a product out of open data collected by citizens, collected in place or collected by digitizing aerial or satellite photography. And this data is extremely, it's a lot of data, it's extremely valuable, it can be used for a lot of good things. But of course, it's open, everybody can use it. And if some evil authority would use this data to create, I don't know what, exclusion zones of people of whatever, it would be possible. It's really difficult to prevent that in some ways. In other ways, and this was the example I made, and you mentioned, Fernanda, the point is about this sovereignty of the citizens, the digital sovereignty, giving citizens, participants, the power to control everything about the data they share. So even you can go from the way the spatial extent where data is collected, for example, you can go to temporal extent. So you could say, yes, I want to share a collection of light data, but I don't want to do it in the night because then somebody would realize if there's a sensor on my balcony then one could read out if I'm at home or not, yeah, to get in the house or something like that, yeah. So you could restrict. There would be technological ways. There should be technological ways, and we worked a lot on these things, but they are not used by all of the projects and all of the, especially software developers, to give the power to the people how data they produce and share is being used. So there are solutions for that, but they are not yet used very much, I would say. And it's a problem, and it's really tough way to go. Yeah.
Yes, in our case, as this data depends on a process of dialogue between the government and the citizenship, as I mentioned before. Sometimes it's in many times it's also linked to previous steps of conversations, and mainly some capacity building for both sides. So we are kind of mediators in this process as a university, and we are also help to build capacity, to build a critical mass, put these issues in a kind of educational process. So our tools, they are not detached from this educational process. So I think at least in our case, we are more protected because in this process of dialogue, of building capacity, or of exchanging also making in a collaborative way the data collection tool, because it's power, no? So designing the tool, the process of designing the tool is a process that we have to share this power with the people involved, and not in a kind of top-down way. I give you a tool and you use it. So in many aspects, our process, we are trying, I think that's the case of that Thomas presented us, the process of engaging people in the process of design the collect tool, and also involving people in the process in the whole pipeline, the whole data pipeline, in order to be aware of the risks, in order to enrich the data as well, in order to better do the conversation among all stakeholders involved. But I don't have a simple answer to these questions.
I can fully support this, what both of you guys just said. Of course, it is simple just to say, yeah, ensure that everybody has a word. But the thing is, how can you actually come up with this a governance structure, so to say, that everybody knows the duties he or she has, and especially when you look at the government and the authorities to secure also minorities and their concerns. And then, of course, the next question is how can you actually make sure that once you design those policies, everybody is heard. And this is more than a practical issue. How you as an authority include into these discussions all the representatives of different societal groups. This, I guess, could also fill an entire seminar, but for sure it is, which also brings me back to the transparency and the work the government should do, and the municipal government, so everybody knows what he or she will have to deal with unless you actively participate, and which is of course then encouraged, the active participation ahead of data collection, as always.
Sure. Again, transparency is critical to reduce this asymmetry between government and society, and not only in these participation processes, but while managing all the data, personal and public data. Thanks for this round. Let me just ask if Professor Vaz and Professor Kerstin want to make some final comments and questions, maybe.
Yeah, thank you very much for this presentation. I learned a lot. You see, for me, the question is always a question, the compromise between, on one side, services, on the other side, data protection, data security. And the thing is, for me, is it an individual decision? Should it be an individual decision? I mean, of course, we have the GDPR, and we say that we are allowed to give away our data, but only to a limited space. And there is still responsibilities of the users that they protect minorities and protect different the different groups participating. But should it be more bottom-up processes where everybody says, okay, I allow to give away my data, and it's good for me? Or should it be more, which is more the German case, I must say, that top down we say we protect you, nobody can step into you. Well, your data are protected, and there is the data security, data safety are the most important thing. That is for me, because it's always this kind of compromise. We always give away so many data to the wrong institutions, in my opinion. But and then to others where it is needed, sometimes we say we don't give it away. So should it be top-down managed, or should it be bottom-up in the individual responsibility of everybody? That's for me still a tricky question I can't answer properly.
So before going to the panelists, Professor Vaz would like to do some comments as well.
Yeah, just one point is that maybe trying to link to our previous webinar that was about the digital public infrastructures. We have to imagine that this kind of data collection initiatives are part of broader DPIs, broader digital public infrastructures. And we have to think about the digital sovereignty in many dimensions inside this vision. So the first one is the individual rights, data protection, etc. The second one is the technological autonomy of government. Government have to prevent the public data to be appropriated by private actors, and have to have the capacity to deal with the data collected. But there are another dimension, that is the digital sovereignty as a social value, as I say, about, of course, participatory governance of the data and the technology. We talked about this, transparency, and thinking what kind of broader strategy we have for these data public infrastructures we are building on this, and how can we develop in a participatory way this kind of strategy, and how we can manage these infrastructures in a participatory way also.
So let me just pass to the mic to the panelists, maybe starting with Giselle, because Giselle told me that she maybe have to leave. So in this final round of comments, please, Giselle, if you want to say some final remarks.
Thank you, Fernanda. Thank you, Professor Norbert Kerstin, José Carlos Vaz, for the questions. Very, very sorry to leave in a few minutes. And again, stress the role of education as we are talking, at least in Brazil, we have the digital gap, and we have a population that don't fully understand the power and the value of the personal data they give for free for many platforms, from corporation platforms abroad. And it links to also a kind of colonial vision that we are have this kind of richness extracted daily in a daily basis from our environments, and consuming these tools that are offered by this kind of corporations, and also some technologies that are used against minorities, as we see here in Brazil, the racism of cameras that are used by police forces in order to investigate suspect people. So it's very important to give to put light on this in these issues, and the role of the media in a very broad communication about them, besides education, would be strategic path to follow in the near future, in the present and near future. Thanks again for the invitation. I will be here in just a few minutes, and very nice to be part of this conversation.
So Thomas would like to make these final remarks and comments.
Yes, thanks a lot. Thanks, Giselle. It's great to hear about your project. So just due to the time restriction, I would like only to comment on Professor Kersting's remark, because I think it's really valuable and an interesting point of view to ask who is responsible for let's say the security and the questions about which data should be shared. I mentioned on the one hand this digital sovereignty part, which is more on the citizens side, but of course I would say the authorities I would say they have a responsibility to protect the citizens of a city, and for example put this into public bids, public calls for projects that people working on the technology need to assure that this thing, let's say data, is not collected at all. But at the same time, we can't protect bottom-up movements, grassroots movements where citizens just do something. Yeah. And in this part, the key solution for the citizens would be education, which takes a long time to change, of course, especially in Germany. So people should know what it means to share different kinds of data, and they usually don't know. You hear a lot working with citizens. You hear a lot. Well, I share the data because, yeah, what does it mean? Nobody cares, and I'm not interested in what happens with the data. Not knowing that a lot of things are possible with just a little data. Yeah, finding out a lot of information about a person only about the spatial data that people are sharing with the GPS in their smartphones is possible, and it's being done a lot. So I think education about that is a key factor, and if people would know better what is possible to do with the data, they would be more protective from their side, and then be more, let's say, selective on projects to participate in and sharing different kinds of data. Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Peter?
Yeah, actually, I just can fully support what Thomas said in terms of education, but also extend it to the other side. So not only for the citizens itself, but also for, of course, administration to actually fully understand the potentials, and in order to not being overrun by private big tech companies when it comes to any tendering, which they might have, and so to make sure actually not the big tech and the private industry dictates what has to be in the tendering documents, but to stop this from the beginning, my wish.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you again, Thomas, Giselle, for kindly accepting our invitation. It was great to hear from your experiences, your perspectives on this matter. We'll keep it was great food for thought for our work. We'll certainly ingest and think about reflect on the insights you brought here to the conversation. Thank you a lot. And I would just like to hand over to say goodbye to you and hand over to Jose so he can make the final remarks and close the panel. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Fernanda. And once again, thank you to everybody to join us today. It was a very, very nice discussion we had. I took lots of notes here, and we discussed about not just the strategy to do the data collection, but the citizen engagement, the co-creation and the adoption of new technologies based on co-creation by governments in smart cities, and some difficulties we face to this. We discussed about citizens and civil servants training and education, about regulation and procurement and funding initiatives, and the participatory process around the data collection. We discussed also about digital sovereignty. So it was a very rich discussion. I want to thank you once again, and thank you for all the people that helped us, especially, of course, to Kati that provide us important support to this webinar happen. And so thank you very much again, and I'm glad to having you here today. Thank you.